In the future, the world is super focused on eugenics, implying everyone mainly gets made in labs to be perfect. There's a genetic database where everyone is registered. People created in labs are called valids. Those who are born the natural way are labeled invalids because they might have more genetic issues, like getting sick easily or even losing hair. Even though it's not allowed, some bosses still test workers' pee or even their spit from envelopes. They use this to figure out their genes. Because of this, people with certain genes end up in simple jobs. Vincent spends a lot of time in his apartment making sure he is very clean. He shaves carefully and scrubs his body until there's not a single spot left. After that, he makes sure there are no hairs or dead skin anywhere by burning them. Then he takes a special bag from the fridge. This bag is filled with urine. He carefully connects this bag to his groin area. He finds a way to make it look like he did the work. He even adds a little blood into a fake fingertip and puts it on his real finger very carefully. Vincent gets a job at the big Gattaca Aerospace Corporation. At work, everyone has to give a bit of blood from their finger to prove who they are before they can go inside. Vincent uses a fake fingertip to trick the machine into thinking it's getting his blood. He sits at his desk and uses a computer to check out various spaceflight plans. Sometimes he wipes off all the DNA from his keyboard using a small gadget. The boss of the mission came and was really impressed with how clean Vincent kept everything. He even told Vincent that he picked him to go on the space trip to Saturn's moon, Titan, in just a week. Once the boss left, Vincent quickly opened a jar and started sprinkling some stuff. He keeps pieces of skin, hair, and nails around his workstation. He finds a hair and places it on the comb he keeps in his desk. Later, Vincent has to go through a test to make sure he hasn't taken any substances before the mission. He hides his urine sample in a bag and gives it to the doctor. When they test it, the machine says his name is Jerome, and he's okay to work. After his job, Vincent goes to see a spaceship leave Earth. His co-worker Irene comes over to say well done for his job. She talks about his passion for the mission, mentioning he's the only one who watches every launch, day in, day out. Then, we dive into a flashback that shows us what Vincent's life was like when he was younger. Vincent's parents had a quick moment together on the beach, and that's how his mom ended up getting pregnant with him. It was something not planned, but Vincent came into the world in a natural way, which was not very common at that time. Right after he was born, the doctors checked on him. They took a little bit of his blood to run some tests and figure things out about him. Vincent's life was really tough from the start. He could easily get sick, so people thought he would live for only 30 years. Growing up wasn't easy for him either. Even a small thing like a cold or a tiny cut was a big deal for his mom. She worried a lot, thinking these small things could be really dangerous for him. Vincent had a tough time because no school wanted him as a student. The reason was his genes. They were not considered good, and insurance companies did not want to cover any problems he might cause. His parents really wanted to help him and give him a chance. After thinking about it, they decided to have another child, but this time they chose to go to a genetic lab to make sure everything was done properly. They named his brother Anton. Anton didn't mind hanging out with Vincent and was pretty cool about it. But Vincent felt that their parents liked Anton more. Whenever their folks weren't paying attention, the two brothers enjoyed playing together. Anton and Vincent had a unique way of competing. They would go to the sea and challenge each other to see who could swim the farthest from the shore. The rule was simple: keep swimming until you get scared, then swim back. Anton was always the winner in these challenges. This made Vincent feel even more inferior. Vincent was a kid who loved space a lot and wanted to be an astronaut when he grew up. His parents kept telling him it wouldn't work out because of his genes, but Vincent didn't care. He didn't give up on his dream. Instead, he went to some interviews to try and become an astronaut. Vincent was really upset because no one gave him a job, just like his parents thought would happen. Then one day, he and his brother Anton went swimming again. This time, something surprising happened. Vincent actually won, and Anton couldn't believe it. Vincent realized he had to help Anton, who was too tired, get back to shore safely. This turned out to be their last swim together. The same evening, Vincent decided it was time to leave his family home and chase his dreams. Vincent found work at Gattaca, starting as a janitor. While he tidied up the place, he'd sneak some time on the computers if no one saw him. He loved to watch the launches that happened every day. He found out that his finger was pricked for blood every day, always the same one. Plus, he sneaked away with a small sensor that dropped off a machine. Vincent was a big dreamer, and the main janitor always made fun of him for it. At his apartment, Vincent loved to exercise a lot, even though it was really hard on his body. He really needed to move ahead, so he made up his mind to reach out to someone from the black market. This person introduced him to Jerome, who used to be an amazing swimmer and super smart with a very strong body, but his legs didn't work. He got like this after a car hit him. Jerome had an accident far from home, and no one found out he couldn't walk anymore. Vincent found 2 men who helped him take Jerome's place. This meant Vincent had to change a lot about himself. It was a big change that took a long time. He switched his glasses for contact lenses to match Jerome's eye color. He also got a haircut and styled it like Jerome's. He wasn't worried about ID pictures because no one really looks at those now. Everything depends on DNA. Jerome was taller than Vincent, which was a problem. So Vincent had to go through a tough time where his legs were broken and made longer just so he could be as tall as Jerome. Vincent started living in Jerome's place so he could use his address. At first, Vincent had to take it easy and rest up because he was in pain from a medical thing he had done. While he was resting and getting better, he spent time learning how to copy Jerome's way of signing his name. He also practiced writing with his whelm. Jerome had a silver medal, which he showed to Vincent one day. He did this to tell Vincent that he has big things to achieve. Jerome also wanted Vincent to call him by his middle name, Eugene, so that he can get himself used to be called as Jerome. Jerome helped prepare the stock by filling bags with urine and blood. Jerome wanted to help Vincent get ready for an important interview. On the big day, Vincent tried using a urine bag for a test on a machine. But things went wrong. The machine showed an error because the urine had alcohol in it. Vincent got really upset with Jerome because his addiction was causing problems. He checked many bags until he found one that wasn't dirty and decided to take it. When they got to the office, the doctor did a test. The machine showed that Vincent was right. Jerome was a valid, which means he got hired instantly for his high IQ. They didn't even make him go through a real interview. From then on, Vincent had to clean his body very carefully every day. He took all the loose skin, nails, and hair and burned it so nothing bad could spread. They made sure to keep the clothes in special bags to keep everything clean. When Vincent was working, he would lay out Jerome's samples on his desk to look at them. Now, bringing us back to what's happening today, everyone at Gattaca is shocked because the company administrator was killed with a keyboard. Jerome was scratching his eye and didn't see that he dropped an eyelash while looking at the awful scene. The police arrived quickly and started collecting every bit of DNA there, including the eyelash. The boss told Irene to help the police however they needed. The plan didn't change, and Vincent was still set to go to space. He told Jerome the news, and they went out to celebrate. They drank a lot and played with smoke in their glasses. Meanwhile, at the office, Irene took a hair from Vincent's desk and brought it to a service that said Vincent was a great match after some tests. At the end of the night, Jerome was so drunk that Vincent had to help him to bed. Suddenly, Jerome makes a confession. He hadn't been drunk during the car crash, and it hadn't been an accident. He had actually been trying to self-delete. The next morning, the police forensic department tests all the samples and discovers a mysterious invalid had been in Gattaca, so now he's the prime suspect. Back to Vincent. He puts the little sensor he stole back in his janitor days on Jerome's chest to record 20 minutes of his pulse as he whirls the wheels of his chair extra hard to simulate exercise. Later at Gattaca, Vincent is put on a running test, and he replaces the office sensor with the one he brought from home. Meanwhile, the detectives investigate the invalid profile from the eyelash and discover it belongs to a janitor that disappeared a few years ago. They come to the office to ask some questions, and Vincent overhears them while they talk, which makes him nervous. To make matters worse, The 20-minute-long recording soon ends, and Vincent's real pulse appears, which is rather high. He immediately rushes to the locker room and collapses as he tries to catch his breath. After work, Irene meets with Vincent and admits she read his DNA sequence, which of course actually was Jerome's. She's very impressed by how perfect he is and feels inferior, admitting that she's a lab baby but still has a likelihood of heart failure. This means she'll never be allowed to join a mission. When Vincent says he doesn't see anything wrong with her, Irene hands him a lock of her hair and encourages him to test it to discover her genetic flaws, but Vincent tosses it away and claims that the wind blew it. Sometime later, Vincent is working at the computer when suddenly all the employees get the profile of the invalid from the eyelash because he's a wanted man. Thankfully, nobody recognizes him, but Vincent is still afraid. When he gets home, he tells Jerome that he's the prime suspect and starts throwing away all the blood and urine bags. Jerome immediately stops him, reminding him they would never look at Vincent and see an invalid. That night, Vincent decides to go out because it would be suspicious if he changed his routine. When Jerome looks out the window, he sees that Irene has come to pick Vincent up. Moments later, Vincent and Irene are attending a piano concert as their first date. After the concert, the pianist throws his glove into the audience, and Vincent realizes he has 12 fingers. Irene explains such a complex piece of music could only be played by those hands. Meanwhile, the detectives are rounding up a bunch of invalids from the neighborhood in order to find the murderer. But obviously, none of their DNA matches the eyelash. They start checking all the buildings around Gattaca and end up at Jerome's place, so he has to take a blood test too. The detective is shocked to find a man in a wheelchair working at Gattaca. Jerome acts upset and yells at him. He says he was just injured while training and accuses the detective of doubting him. Not looking for any trouble, the detective decides to leave. Meanwhile, at Gattaca, some officers come and take away all the trash bags. Irene and Vincent were going home when they found that the road was blocked. The police were checking everyone in the area. Vincent quickly took out his contacts and didn't take a spit test because he told them he had been drinking. The police decide to take a blood sample from Vincent, but his trick with a fake fingertip fools them like always. Right after they clear the check, Irene tells Vincent she wants to show him something special, so she stops the car a few miles further. She rushes across the road, dodging cars. Vincent is scared to follow because he needs his contacts to see properly. He finally decides to run across, and luckily, he doesn't get hit by any cars. Then, Irene leads him away. Vincent and Irene were at the solar panel center early in the morning to watch the sunrise. It was a beautiful sight because the light made a special effect, but everything looked a bit blurry to Vincent. When they were leaving, Irene saw that Vincent's eyes didn't look normal. Vincent said it was just because of how the light was playing tricks. The detectives found out something interesting a little while after they started looking into the case. They found a cup in the office trash. What was so special about this cup? Well, it had the same DNA as an eyelash they found. This made them think that the person who wasn't supposed to be there, called an invalid, was actually working there in disguise. And why did this person kill the administrator? The detectives think it's because the administrator figured out their secret. They visit Gattaca and say they'll take blood samples straight from the vein, not from fingertips. When it's Vincent's turn, he acts like the needle hurt him and jumps out of the seat. He swapped his blood sample with Jerome's really fast. The detectives tried the tests once more, but they didn't find a match. Later that evening, Vincent and Irene decided to go on another date. While they were enjoying, they are interrupted by the police, who started collecting things with DNA on them, like used napkins and cigarette butts. They also want to test people, so Vincent quickly leaves with Irene through the back door. A cop tries to stop them, but Vincent immediately starts beating him up until he's unconscious. Irene got really scared and called Vincent insane. Then Vincent didn't listen and just dragged her away to run through some dark alleys. Some cops find their friend on the ground and start looking for a couple hiding in an alley. One detective shouts Vincent, and when Irene asks who that is, Vincent just kisses her. Later, the couple visits Irene's apartment for their first intimate moment. The next morning, Vincent notices a hair on the pillow. He quickly goes to the beach, where he scrubs his skin with sand and rocks to get rid of any excess skin. Vincent returns, and Irene wonders about the scars on his legs. He tells her they're from a car accident. The detectives were checking if Jerome's details matched Vincent's. They felt something was off and needed more checks. So they went to Gattaca, got the keys from Vincent's keyboard, and started asking around about him, but still called him Jerome. Irene finds out and quickly warns Vincent. She says he looks unwell and should leave. Vincent gets her hint and goes away. Meanwhile, Irene shares what's happening with the detective. She tells that Vincent was feeling sick, so he decided to go back home. The detective doesn't give up and asks Irene to take him to Jerome's house. Meanwhile, Vincent calls Jerome, telling him just to be himself because the police are on their way. Jerome has to leave his wheelchair behind and begin climbing the stairs to get to the main floor. He moves his legs slowly and carefully. It's not easy, and it takes him some time, but he finally manages to reach the buzzer. He presses it just in time to open the door for Irene and the detective to come in. He moves slowly to the chair and makes his legs look normal. When the detective and Irene comes in, Jerome does his part. He asks Irene for a kiss, and she kisses him so they can keep the story going. The detective takes a blood sample and is frustrated to see this is indeed Jerome. Then he tries to go downstairs, where Vincent and the lab are hiding, but at that moment, he gets a call from his partner saying they've captured the murderer, so the detective leaves. Vincent comes out where Irene can see him standing next to Jerome. They both call each other by the name Jerome. This confuses and hurts Irene, so she quickly leaves the place. Seeing her upset, Vincent doesn't just stand there. He goes after her to explain he did not kill anyone. Irene feels unsure and decides to leave. At the police station, they find out that the director's spit was in the victim's eye, proving that he was the killer. The director killed the administrator because he wanted to stop the Titan mission, but the director wanted to make sure it happened. Later, Vincent goes back to his desk and meets the detective there. The detective tells him something surprising. He is Vincent's brother, Anton. They did not know each other at first because it had been so long since they last saw each other. Anton figures it out while he was looking into the case. He tells Vincent he has committed fraud and tries to arrest him. They start arguing. Vincent thinks Anton just wants him to fail and reminds him about the time he won their last race. This makes Anton want to race him again. The brothers reach the beach when it's already night. They waste no time and dive into the water, swimming away. They go so far that they can't even see the shore anymore. Anton feels like they are doing too much, but Vincent doesn't agree and calls him scared, so they don't stop. Anton gets really tired and says it again. This time, Vincent shares his secret. He doesn't keep any energy for going back. Anton got really frustrated and turned back, but then he started to drown. Vincent had to go back and help him out. Then they both swam to the shore together. After some time passed, Vincent decided to visit Irene and gave her a strand of his hair as a gift. But Irene throws it away, saying the wind did it. Vincent tells about leaving for a mission that will keep him away for a year. They decide to spend one last night together at her place. The next morning, Vincent goes back to his apartment. Jerome had his lab all wrapped up in plastic. He showed Vincent so many sample bags, enough to last for 2 whole lifetimes. It sounded like Jerome didn't think he would be there to see Vincent again. Vincent got curious and asked Jerome where he planned to be. Jerome gives Vincent a card and tells him not to open it until he's in space. Then Vincent heads to Gattaca to prepare for his mission. The doctor tells him they need a new urine sample because of a policy change. Vincent was caught off guard. He didn't bring Jerome's bag, so he finds himself having to pee in a cup, wishing things were different. Vincent thought his dream was lost. Then a doctor told him a secret. The doctor knew all along and kept it to himself because he has a child with similar challenges who was also invalid and believes everyone deserves a fair chance. The machine makes a mistake with the profile, but the doctor fixes it for Jerome and allows Vincent to go through. As Vincent is leaving, the doctor tells him he noticed because Vincent always used the wrong hand. Jerome takes his silver medal and goes into the incinerator, choosing to end his own life. At the same time, he gets on a spaceship, leaving Earth behind. When Vincent is far away, he finds a big piece of Jerome's hair in a card. Jerome technically also went to space, just like others did.